I'm Hans Dorwil, former UNESCO Assistant Director General for Strategic Planning. I'm delighted to be moderator of this event. It is co-hosted by the Melody for Dialogue Among Civilizations Association and the College for Arts, Media, and Design of Northeastern University in Boston. I'm pleased to welcome all distinguished panelists to this unique event. It is unique inasmuch the triple nexus of music, arts, and architecture has rarely been addressed by a group of such diverse and extremely influential speakers. Unique also, as focusing on this nexus may help identify new avenues for urban planning in the future. Our task then today is to rethink the city and urban environment towards a renewal. Many challenges lie ahead. As we move from the era of megacities to an era of city clusters, each with more than 100 million population, how can we deliver the benefits of urbanization? How can such cities cope with increased demands for services in an equitable and sustainable manner? Further, we are witnessing the rise of the creative city, or should I say several types of creative cities. Many international organizations are actively supporting this path. The just opened 2021 Venice Biennial for Architecture is devoted to the theme, how will we live together? In view of political polarization, climate change, mass migration, the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, and growing social inequities, Hashim Sarkis, the curator of the Venice Biennial, suggested the time may have come for a new special contract, inspired and driven by architects. Architecture has a capacity to bring us together, but also to separate us. We never lived in a time where architecture has been so present and relevant as today. We cannot dissociate architecture from other cultural expressions. Ecological, engineering, and cultural infrastructures are increasingly interwoven. Hence, our focus is on arts and music in connection with architecture. The arts and music can contribute to a better world and give people a sentiment of homeliness, belonging, and attraction. The intersection between urbanization, digitalization, sustainability, and cultural diversity and creativity is at the core of transforming cities. How can architecture contribute to a society in transition to a new ecological paradigm? What architectural answers exist to the challenges of the current environmental challenges? Which innovative solutions can be introduced? Which new materials can be used for eco-friendly construction methods? And which alternative ways exist of designing architecture and of engineering new and inspiring urban spaces? Questions over questions. In particular, the world needs smart energy solutions for cosmopolitan environments which are sustainable. For one, the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, has just announced a package of measures to create ultra-low carbon buildings and tackle the climate emergency dubbed the retrofit revolution in order to reach net zero emissions by 2030. Let me conclude my introduction with a statement which US President Joe Biden made earlier this month to the 2021 honorees of Washington's Kennedy Center. He said, "In this year of profound loss and pain, repair and renewal, the artist's vision is as important as ever in the search for greater meaning in our lives. We discovered and rediscovered the power of art in every form. We will continue to celebrate and appreciate the critical role arts play in our nation. We look forward to working with art and cultural organizations in big cities, small towns, and rural communities to make art more accessible for people at every age and every background, to lift up more voices and stories." End of quote. It is now my honor and pleasure to turn to the co-hosts of this forum. Dan, you now have the floor.
Thank you, Hans. I want to start by formally thanking Hans and Mary, who will speak immediately after me, for organizing this event along with our Northeastern University colleagues. In particular, I want to say to Hans and Mary that I am immensely impressed by the fluidity with which you can connect people and ideas across continents. You are profound cultural bridges across global geographies. At our School of Architecture here at Northeastern, we aspire to teach students how the disciplinary skills of creative practice in architecture can be brought to effectively and positively contend with the complex sociocultural and environmental concerns of our contemporary times. Our mission is to interrogate and advance creative skills of architectural representation, design, and critique in order to empower future architects to be mindful, capable, and intentional about the full scope of their impact. While consideration of environmental performance, universal inclusivity, and equity are sometimes conveyed as limitations on so-called creative freedoms in design, we alternatively see these considerations as aspirational pursuits that fuel and require innovation in creative practice. In our school, we define architecture not as shaping a discrete building or landscape, but as the shaping of the built environment. Every design is understood as part of an ecosystem composed of material, ecological, social, and cultural inputs and outcomes. For our school and for this event, we borrow a term from the ecological sciences, the global footprint, to consider the full picture of our actions, such as environmental impacts to air and water and habitat, which communities are positively or negatively impacted by the full life cycle of a project, from material sourcing to construction and demolition practices, or living with designs in people's everyday lives. Without further ado, I would now like to reiterate my appreciation and introduce our co-host for this event, Mary Madarshahi, President from Melody for Dialogue Among Civilisations.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Hans. Thanks to all of you. And I must start my presentation by saying good day and good evening to all of you, wherever you are in the world. As president of the Melody for Dialogue Among Civilizations Association and co-organizer of this prestigious forum, it is my great honor and pleasure to welcome you all. Our hope today is to discuss a new nexus and an issue rarely addressed, and that is the role and importance of arts and music as catalysts for sustainable development, for community building, and a motor for better design of future and smart cities. Since its inception in 2004, Melody strived to use the power of music as an international language to give rise to harmony, dialogue, and peace among nations and people by organizing major multicultural concerts in various parts of the world. Since 2009, in collaboration with various agencies of the United Nations, including in particular UNESCO and UNEP, and coinciding, of course, with the conference on climate change in Copenhagen, Melody entered to a new phase in its activities and opened a new page in its agenda. And that new page was how to create more awareness through musical performances, multimedia presentation, and participatory conferences on issues related to sustainable development. This new orientation was based on the belief that the separation between human being and nature was a false dichotomy. We are nature. Nature is us. Today's forum, in collaboration with the College of Architecture of the Northeastern University, and the presence of all distinguished panelists like you, is the culminating event in these efforts. Let me stop here and wish you very productive discussions. I hope to share with you more effort to create a more harmonious urban environment for our present and future generations. Thank you again, and looking forward to our today's discussions and deliberation.
Thank you very much, Mary. Thank you very much, Dan. Our first presentation today comes from Stefano Boeri. He is a legend in architecture for his vertical forest buildings, the Bosco Verticale. So here now is Stefano Boeri's video and contribution.
I believe that a smart city should also be a city where we can find a new relation with living nature. We started to work with my studio in Milano, in Shanghai, in another part of the world, with this kind of obsession to redefine the relation with living nature. And I believe that if we can describe our sense of fragility, the fragility that we have received as a legacy from the pandemic. That fragility is related to the awareness that our relation with nature has to be drastically changed. We have done our best in the past to let's say, to put nature outside our body, outside our buildings, outside our cities, or to control living nature with fences and barriers. But we have understood, thanks to a very, very small living microorganism, that we are part of nature, and this is a lesson that we cannot forget. So we produce, realize, and study and imagine a high-rise building for plants and trees that are also hosting birds and humans. But the same we are doing with Radura. This is for two main reasons. One, it's about biodiversity. We need biodiversity also for our health. The woodlands, we have to, let's say, also imagine a new idea of community inside living nature with different relations. So that's what we do, that's what we're planning to do also in the future, and what is characterizing the work of our studio. Thank you so much for your attention.